Back to the Insiders with James Ham and Kyle Madsen, brought to you by Jiffy Lube on ESPN 1320.
That's James. I'm Kyle, live from the home studio today. Joe Brazil is producing the program as per usual. So we got to talk about Nique Clifford, the player, a little bit here. We've talked a lot about the trade and what it means for the Kings, and I want to get to your calls on the Elk Grove Kid talk line, 916-909-1320, 916-909-1320. I see Will and I see Mark. They want to talk about day 2 of the draft, which is tonight. Coverage begins at 4:30 right here on ESPN 1320. We will get to the second round, so hang in there, guys. I do want to talk about the second round tonight, but we got to talk about Nique Clifford, the player. So you're getting he's 6'5" barefoot, 199 pounds, 6'8" wingspan. He is a really good athlete. And to me, profiles as a prototypical switchable 3-and-D wing who has the athleticism, I think, to guard 1 through 3 and some 4s. It's just the exact type of player we've been asking the Kings to get for 2.5 years now. So I don't think I think it's important to kind of expectation set a little bit. I don't think that Nique Clifford makes the Kings a championship contender tomorrow. I don't even think Nique Clifford is going to start as the roster is currently constructed. But I have a hard time, feeling negatively about a pick when he checks all the boxes of the exact type of player the Kings don't have enough of and that we've been asking for. So for me, I really, really like the selection here for Sacramento.
Yeah, so let's get to some of the basics. He averaged in his 5th season, and he grew up in Colorado, played his first 3 seasons at Colorado, and then transferred to Colorado State, right, to finish his college career. He averaged 18.9 points, 9.6 rebounds, and 4.4 assists per game. He also averaged 1.2 steals, turned the ball over 2.6 times per game, shot 49.6% from the field, 37.7% from 3. Again, what Kyle said, sort of prototypical 3-and-D wing. But one of the big things that I went through and looked at is the 9.6 rebounds. This kid at 6'5" plus averaged over 8 defensive rebounds per game. He had 12 games out of 36 where he had over 10 defensive rebounds. Mm-hmm. I think he finished with 15 double-doubles on the season, but just defensive rebounds alone, he had that many games. So what this tells you, it's not that he is some elite athlete that goes out and gets every rebound and he's a Dennis Rodman of small forwards. What it tells you is that he hustles and that he works hard. And I think that that's something that the Kings desperately need at the small forward position or the guard position. It's something that, again, when they went out and drafted Devin Carter last year, you drafted Devin Carter because he averaged over 8 rebounds a game at 6'2". And it's just a player profile thing. It's sort of like with the 49ers, gold hat thing. Like when you have a player who way outdoes a hustle stat at a position that he shouldn't be doing that in, it stands out. And so that's one of the keys to him, like defensive rebound and rebounding in general. He also became a much better passer as his career advanced through the NCAA, getting up to 4.4 assists per game. They kept calling him the Swiss Army knife on the broadcast last night on the ESPN broadcast. And I think it's a really, really good description for him because that's kind of what he is. And I comparative, the Doug Christie comp is interesting. I asked both Scott Perry and Nique about that specifically, about being compared to Doug Christie. But even when you watch him, there's some Evan Turner in there, a guy who just does everything. And he may not be a top tier scorer at the NBA level, but what he is going to be is a player that you can put on the court and that will stuff the stat sheet every time he's on the court, and that's a good thing.
Yeah. Can he do the things on the margins? Because if your roster is going to feature Domantas Sabonis and Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan, they're going to handle a lot of the tier 1 type of stuff. They're going to handle a lot of the ball handling, a lot of the scoring, a lot of the distribution. Like they've got that covered. And we've talked about this with the Kings roster and checking boxes. And they have a bunch of guys who kind of check the same box, and they need to get further down the list. If Nique Clifford can come in and play good defense and be switchable 1 through 3 and some 4s, and ball handle a little if called upon, but knock down an open 3, be a player that defenses have to worry about. If he can be that, if he can, sorry, my headphones cut out, and so it derailed my train of thought. But if he can be the guy who does the things on the margins, if he can grab some extra rebounds, grab an offensive rebound to save an extra possession, it's just the things that players like Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan, and to a lesser extent, in most cases, Domantas Sabonis, but Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan specifically, just guys on the perimeter, just the little things that are not in their job description necessarily. So that's the thing that jumps out to me is the play style, the basketball IQ, the willingness to do the little things that impact winning. I think the Kings needed more of that guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think all of those things, whether you think Nique Clifford is going to score 18 a night or 20 a night or 10 a night, that stuff is all secondary to me when you start to factor in the other ways he affects the game.
Yeah, and I also think, again, he shot 37.7% from 3 this last season. He shot 37.6% from 3 the year before. So that shows you some stability. But there's also a lot of room for growth there. And I think when you get him into an NBA locker room, an NBA weight room, an NBA practice court, you're going to see the Kings try to develop that 3-point shot just a little bit more to make sure that it's as solid as it can be. And that's what you need. You need him to shoot, like go back to the Harrison Barnes era, where Harrison Barnes shot between 38 and 39% like almost every single season in a Kings uniform. If you can get him around there, like 37, 38, 39%, especially with the corner 3, I think you can really have an impactful player that doesn't have to have the ball in his hands a lot. I also think that, like, if you look at some of the advanced statistics, like his usage was extremely high this year, 26.8%. For a guy who that's not who he's going to be at the pro level. He's not going to have the ball in his hands all that much. If you can get his usage rate to come down, but still have that effectiveness, I think that's where you're going to start to see him excel. And, even looking at his stats, there's a possibility he was asked to do more than he should have been asked to do at the college level, just because that's probably how his team was established. And being the best player on your team, that's typically what happens. We're talking about a kid who had, at the college level, 2.9 defensive win shares. He had 7 win shares overall as a player, which I'm pretty sure led college basketball. Like, this is a kid who's extremely, extremely impactful on the defensive end. And that's going to speak again to like basketball IQ. It's going to speak to like the way that he plays the game. He sees the game the right way. He's a multi-sport athlete. He's a guy who's played a bunch of different sports outside of basketball. And it just like helps enrich his overall IQ on the court. And I think this is going to be someone that the Kings, you're looking at the standard that Scott Perry is looking for. We always saw who the Monty and West pick was. We understood who it was. They were always looking for like older, more mature players who had specific skill sets. We're starting to see what Scott Perry's like sort of look and feel for a draft pick is, and this is his first opportunity with the Kings this time around. But he makes a lot of sense.
Can we talk about the Doug Christie comp thing?
Yeah.
So you asked Nique and Scott Perry about this, and Scott Perry said that he gets it, but he wants Nique to be himself. Which, okay, first of all, I want to put a pin in that because, yes, of course.
Yeah.
That's what every GM says. Hey, this player was compared to Phillip Rivers. Your thoughts? Like, well, he's his own player. Like, that's not duh. Like, that's, we all know that, but the expectation is not, oh wow, Nique Clifford got compared to Doug Christie, he needs to just be Doug Christie. No, that's not it at all. It's Doug Christie was a hard-nosed, scrappy defender, willing to mix it up, could knock down a three, could handle a little bit, like did just exactly what I was just talking about. All the little things, like Doug Christie affected games on the margins, right?
Mm-hmm.
So and maybe more than that at points, but he did all the little things consistently, night in and night out, and was an awesome, really impactful NBA player. That's to me the comparison. It's not going to be game for game. It's not going to be he has to shoot it exactly like Doug and handle and play defense the exact same way. And like it doesn't have to be all that. But can he bring the same mindset? Can he bring the same hustle? Can he bring the same energy? Can he bring that same willingness to play team basketball and to fit within whatever the ecosystem is? That's what Doug did for his entire career, and he really thrived here in Sacramento. That's what I'm looking for. Can he fit that mold of what Doug Christie and Scott Perry want for this team, the culture they want, the mindset they want for their players? I think they would love it if all 15 guys attacked the game the same way Doug Christie did. And if you are making a draft pick, if you're giving up draft capital, future draft capital, potentially significant future draft capital to get up into the first round to take this guy, it's like, yeah, it makes sense that he would be a Doug Christie type of player, even if he's not that player, pound for pound.
Yeah, I think it's funny. The first thing Scott Perry said, he kind of looks like Doug, doesn't he? That was the first thing that he said. And like he just like size wise, like stature, arm length, all that stuff he does. He kind of resembles the body type of Doug Christie. But I think you're spot on. Like the idea of go back to the early 2000 Kings. They were a team filled with star level players, and then they had Doug Christie, who wasn't ever an all-star, but he was a superstar in his role. Absolute superstar in his role. And so I like the idea of drafting players like that, guys that come in and like accept who they should be at the NBA level and play to their strengths. I also think that when you look at again, who they're looking for, what type of player they're looking for, you've got to keep up with the rest of the league. And that is, I think, the biggest failure that I saw from Monty and Wes is that like the entire league understood that you had to have this type of player.
Yep.
And they just refused to acknowledge that and refused to go draft the players that fit that mold outside of Keegan. Like I think Keegan certainly fit that
mold. Got
mold.
one. Yep.
Yeah. And then the other thing, when I asked Nique about it, he said he's heard the comp before, but he didn't really, he hasn't studied Doug Christie. And he said, I'm going to go hit the YouTube and make sure that I watch Doug Christie clips. And he's like, I'm excited to work with the guy. He's someone that can help me develop and really bring me along, especially if we're going to work together. I should probably know who it is that I'm actually working for. And to me, that was like one of those moments where how many times have I seen a player come through who you ask them about a player comp and they have no idea who you're talking about. And then they don't go do it. Like Willie Cauley-Stein, have you ever watched a tape of Dennis Rodman? Why would I do that? Well, because he's the greatest rebounder of this generation, and you're a bad rebounder, and your body style and his body style are very similar, except for you're at least 6 inches taller than Dennis Rodman was, and you might be able to learn something. So when you have a player who like gets it right away, it's like, not only that, but like he's here for a job interview. Like every day you're trying to win a job, and you should know who your boss is when you're trying to win a job. You should do your homework. You should go on LinkedIn and figure out who your boss is if you're going to go in, or who your potential boss is if you're going in for an interview with somebody.
Yep.
And so for him to say that was like, okay, he gets it. He's here to actually learn and to get better and to accept the fact that he doesn't know everything about the league.
So the big thing has been about how old Nique Clifford is, right? Because he's 23 and he turns 24 in February. He was 3 months old during the 2002 Western Conference Finals.
Yeah.
And he's old. That's crazy to me.
I think there's a kid in this year's draft that we looked at that was 2006 birthday.
06. Yeah.
06. Yeah, that's just absolutely bonkers.
Yeah, it's just brutal for us. So what's the expectation for you with Nique Clifford then? We talk about he's obviously not going to step on the court and be Doug Christie on day one.
Mm-hmm.
But I started kind of jotting down what a lineup could look like or what a rotation could look like. And if DeMar DeRozan's staying, and if Zach LaVine is staying, And if Domantas Sabonis is staying, which according to some reporting from Sam Amick, it sounds like that's kind of the direction the Kings are heading. I don't know that Nique Clifford is in your starting lineup in year one. In fact, I'm certain he's not. Almost
Yeah.
certain.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be difficult to win a starting job out of the gate, but again, I look at where he was drafted, and where he was projected to be drafted, maybe more than where he was drafted. So if I'm looking at the 24th pick in the 2025 NBA draft and saying I'm going to start that guy, that's usually a fool's errand. That's where you run into a bunch of problems. But the 15th, 16th pick in the draft, okay, he might be able to find his way onto the court as a starter. And I don't know if that's going to be the case or not, but I certainly think he's going to be closer to rotational player than he is to playing the entire season in the G League.
Yeah.
And I do not expect him to spend a bunch of time in the G League trying to figure out the NBA game and all that stuff. And like, look, there's so much misdirection, smoke, craziness going on right now. We have no idea who's going to be left standing when this roster is fully built out, except for probably Nique. We know that he'll probably be here because this was Scott Perry's first draft pick running the Sacramento Kings, and he gave up quite a bit to get him. And it just, you kind of put a stamp on it and say, hey, look, this is a guy. This is a guy that they want in the rotation. Now, that might have adverse impact on a couple other players. You know, it could mean that they don't go chase a guy, try to bring back a guy like Jake LaRavia in the draft. I mean, in free agency. Maybe they do because he's 6'8" and he can play the 3 and the 4, but also maybe they don't. Maybe they already think that they're going to have a loaded front line, and that's going to be difficult to fit another player in. But I definitely see this as a player who will probably play minutes in year one, and probably play minutes right off the bat, and will probably like get a bunch of run at in summer league.
That's James Ham. I'm Kyle Madsen. We're hanging out with you until noon. Speaking of Nique Clifford, who we're going to talk about quite a bit today, Nique Clifford's college coach is going to join us tomorrow. We're still hammering out an exact time, and once we get that for you, we'll